follow us at Q95 FM Radio. Share the live, like our pages. The on-air phone numbers are on the homepage of our website, and Lamb will give them to you later anyway at www.q95da.com. So be sure to get the latest breaking news and reviews on Q95 because you know it's true if you hear it on Q. So we continue to revive the spirit of graciousness, of love and peace and prosperity and unity among Kalinago and Afro-Caribbean brothers and sisters. But as we get going, let me just ask Lambi, with Lambi on alert, I wanted to play this brief promo that I did with Matt earlier today. So I'm going to go over to Lambi, and Lambi, you can run the promo that we did earlier with Matt today. I'm not sure if Lambi is hearing me. So if Lambi, if you're hearing me, you can go ahead and play the promo.
Dr. Thompson Fontaine, and also we expect to have to join us for a few minutes by Sam George. We call him the enigmatic Sam George of TDN Radio. And we will, in fact, be paying some tribute to Thea LaFond. And we will, in fact, be playing Sam's songs. I mean, Sam has written many songs and produced many songs and mixed and mastered many, many songs. But there's two of them that I kind of think that are very, very good for us to look at now, because I remember he wrote a song when I think two women in Dominica have been murdered within a day, or the same day or something. I don't know whether you recall that. And Sam George made that song. But really and truly, he has been doing some things, and I really want him to talk about what he has been doing tonight. It was really instructive that he was able to write that song and produce it and publish it. This is our 31st Global Beyond Q show tonight for 2024, 31st one for 2024. And of course, we continue to engage with our cherished local, regional, and global Q family listeners and friends of Dominica. Our distinguished guests, as I said tonight, are Justice Dr. Eddie Andre, our distinguished investigative journalist, UWP President Leonard Clinton, UWP Team Dominica leader, financial economist Dr. Thompson Fontaine. And I said, we will do the special tribute to Thea LaFond, and Sam George, TDN Radio, will help us to do that and talk about his songs. But we will talk about the urgency for people's power to fuel the way forward for Dominica. We will tell you why we need a major display of people's power now. And tonight we will show how the crisis of electoral reform has implications for productive or unproductive national budgets, like those that have been presented from year to year, year after year for 20 years. What has been and is really the mission, the unfulfilled goals, objectives, and deliverables and failed projects that are highlighted in the budget every year. We will have some questions. So where is the budget for the people? What are the people getting from this? Who is looking after the people's interests? Who is speaking for the people? Are the Kalinawas, for example, going to be punished for voting for Ms. Annette Sanford? She represents, I believe, the best of us. But do the rest of us have the courage to follow the good example of the Kalinawa people, to fight and vote for meaningful change? What has been accomplished for ordinary Dominicans from this national budget? And I speak a lot about this budget because every year we get these budgets and nothing seems to come out of them. So is this 2024-25 national budget simply more of the same? A struggling economy, as described by our finance minister, Dr. McIntyre, is contracting. Agriculture, tourism, agribusiness, and the other growth engines are stuttering and suffering, and unemployment is rising. We still have to remind ourselves of all those things because it's happening to us every day. Export earnings are decreasing. Healthcare is deteriorating. Youth entrepreneurs are not getting help. The national debt is growing and growing and growing. Some $400 million has already been spent, and costs are rising for an elusive geothermal energy project that still has no clue as to what will be the price already. Hard-pressed Dominican households will have to pay for electricity. No word on the future of a CBI program played with bad operators because of failed due diligence, which has resulted in cancellations of citizenships of many alleged crooks, criminals, and bad actors, but which is supposed to, at the same time, it's supposed to fund a significant percentage of the proposed expenses in the national budget. And the list of failures goes on. So no wonder the ministries are unable to spend the amounts allocated to them in the budget. The reason may be that the money is just not available to them. But who underpriced the passports they sold to these crooks and criminals? But there is still no accountability from the government ministers as to why the funds that are allocated in the national budget to these major pillars of the economy every year are not spent to deliver better results for ordinary Dominicans. I'm sure that my guests tonight will share their analysis of these issues with us. But meantime, we expect that, as you know, within 6 months or so, following the approval of this national budget estimate that we just had, there will be a return to Parliament for approval of this, what we now call this infamous supplementary estimate. Due to the failure to properly plan and prepare correct cost estimates in the no-bid contracts for the project contained in the national budget estimates. So we advocate for proper electoral and campaign finance reform. And discussion tonight is also about being ready to forestall any sham snap general election that we've been hearing about. The key question is, how did we arrive at this point where the theft of elections has become the norm? Where did we go wrong? Why didn't we see what we were creating? Did we create a monster? Why did our democratic alert system collectively fail us? Even today, we are turning a tolerant eye for the robbery of Dominica. Why? Another key question is, what must we all do individually to protect our democracy and to protect the rule of law in Dominica? Or should all opposition forces, for example, be unified, organized, and structured on the ground in every constituency to make a real impact on the population in support of electoral reform and to participate in national rallies? Will we continue to allow passport sellers to betray the trust of the people even further and continue to sell out the future of Dominica's children? But as you know, most right-thinking Dominicans at home and abroad are still saying enough is enough. Enough of the rampant unemployment, the sidelining of local contractors and local service providers with questionable no-bid contracts to foreign companies, while Dominica stand aside and look. And it's time to stop the ongoing willful persecution of opposition leaders and independent thinkers. Leonard Clinton was back in court again recently. Thompson Fontaine will be back in court again soon. For what? 7 years and counting, and the persecution continues unabated. So too is the victimization, the discrimination against people with a different opinion, and the only answer really is people's power. But as we always say, sitting on the fence or hiding in the shadows has not worked. So tonight, my guest is Justice Dr. Leonard Leonard Clinton Thompson Fontaine, where we will talk about that. We will also touch on what is going on in the United States now, because some of these have lessons for all of us here. What happened in Bangladesh is key. It's a key lesson for us. I mean, this lady has been there for 20 years, and I think she inherited power from her dad or something. And so when we create these kinds of dictatorship, this is what we get. So that is why I say that we cannot just stand aside and look while we see those things happening before our eyes, and we act as though we're not seeing them. It's right there happening before our eyes. So we will talk about those things, but I think it's important that we do. So tonight we expect to have a very interesting discussion, but certainly we are hopeful that we can spend a little time just before we do that on Thea LaFond. I think it's a big deal for Dominica that this lady could win gold in the Olympics. She's really a true champion, the first female Olympian Dominica's ever had, and what a wonderful person she is.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that, Lambi. Really and truly, we have a lot of business to discuss tonight about electoral reform and also about these budgets and what's been happening on an annual basis on that. But I just wanted us to take a few minutes and to really acknowledge and recognize and big up our historic triple jump Olympics champion, Thea LaFond. She's truly a terrific athlete and just a great human being. She displayed the discipline, the grit, the determination, the guts, the resilience, the gravitas to set her eyes on the ultimate prize, the Olympics. And just like that, mission accomplished. So the Q family and friends of Dominica globally are truly proud of Thea. And tonight we have a gentleman with us, Sam George, and he made a song about Thea, which I thought is a great song, which he did within 48 hours. And I'm going to ask Lambi to play that song in a minute for me because I wanted to sort of open in his remarks on that, his brief remarks on that, to give an opportunity to talk about that song, that tribute to Thea. And really and truly, he did write the song in short space of time. He composed it, he produced it, he mixed it, mastered it, certainly within 48 hours. I think Thea truly deserved all of the accolades that she has been receiving so far, and so much, and she needs so much more, in fact. So over to you, Sam, and then to Dr. Andre, and then Dr. Fontaine and Lennox for their own contribution. But just as you begin your utterances on this, I thought it was fitting, Sam, for us to just run that song. So, Lambi, could you run that song? It's called The Golden Jump. And so let us hear that before Sam comes in and talk to us about it.
They're jumping high in the pirate air. Dominica rise will sing without care. Gold, she grasped with strength and might. Triple jump into victory, what a sight. First gold medal, she brought it home. In the city of love, she shone and rolled. Bright and glory in every leap. A legacy of dreams she so deep. Oh, Thea, LaFond, the golden queen, jumping for the flag with a heart so keen. Paris, skies witness the tale. Dominica shines, victories prevail. Oh, oh, from nature out to the world she flew. With every step her spirit grew. Olympic dreams now a truth untold. In Thea's jump we find pure gold. Her story written in the stars. A champion's heart that beats so far. We celebrate you with songs of cheer. Thea LaFond, you conquered fear. Oh, Thea LaFond, the golden queen, jumping for the flag with a heart so keen. Paris, skies witness the tale. Dominica shines, victories prevail. From the nature out to the world she flew. With every step her spirit grew. Olympic dreams now a truth untold. In Thea's jump we find pure gold. Her story written in the stars. A champion's heart that beats so far. We celebrate you with songs of cheer. Thea LaFond, you conquered fear. Oh, Thea LaFond, the golden queen, jumping for the flag with a heart so keen. Paris, skies witness the tale. Dominica shines, victories prevail. Golden moments we cherish so. Thea LaFond, forever we know. Olympic triumphs you define. Dominican pride, your light will shine. The world watched in awe as she took flight. Her boundless spirit shining ever so bright. With each graceful leap, she conquered the sky. Thea LaFond, our hero, reaching new highs. In every stride, she carried a nation's hope. With unwavering determination, she learned to cope. Through sweat and tears, she paved the way. Thea LaFond, in history you'll forever stay. Oh, Thea LaFond, the golden queen, jumping for the flag with a heart so keen. Paris, skies witness the tale. Dominica shines, victories prevail. Oh, 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 oh.
Now, Isn't that beautiful? I mean, I think you need some rounds of applause for this, Sam. Very well done. I mean, I'm sure, and I'm sure that Thea will appreciate this. I'm sure that Thea appreciates that song and that the family hears it. Thompson, I noticed that you have a picture behind you showing Thea's face right in the crowd behind in that stadium. Terrific picture. I guess when you come to see your piece, you will talk to us about that as well. And also, we will want to know the role that you played in getting Dominica to where it is in terms of the establishment of the old Olympic Committee and getting Dominica out there in sports. But let's go to you first. Sam, let's talk about that song and let's talk about your thoughts about Thea.
Sure, sure. Good evening, Q family. And of course, Mr. G, thank you so much for inviting me to the Global View on Q. I appreciate it. And let me say good evening to my family out there in Grand Forks watching and listening. My mom, my dad, my brothers, and White City, which is Thompson here is Dr. Fontaine here, my neighbor. And, so I just, the idea for the song basically came to me about maybe an hour after Fia's historic jump. But I think it might have been somewhere back then, my subconscious, even before that, because she was Anthony's guest last year on This Week in Interview on TDN Radio, which I managed, by the way. And I'm sorry, I didn't, if you don't know me, my name is Sam George. Forget to introduce myself. I'm usually on the other side of the mic, so forgive me. But so TDN Radio, which I manage, which my company owns along with Dr. Fontaine here, which he started, Gianni Enterprises. So Sophia was Anthony's guest on This Week in Interview last year, it was right after she qualified for the Paris Games. So I think somewhere in my subconscious, this might have been stewing. And then watching her, in fact, in that interview, she talked about basically her plan or strategy to get to 15 meters. And so, she achieving that goal, because she said something to the effect where if you have a particular goal, you can set smaller bites of that goal until you achieve it. So if you jump 14 meters and you want to go further, you have to, set your mind to it. You set that goal and you keep going until you get to where you want to get to. And I say, lo and behold, it's, how they say prophetic words. I think prophetic words truer words have not been spoken. And so here we are. And I was so happy to see that she reached the goal she wanted to reach. And more importantly, Dominica wins its first Olympic medal and a gold medal at that. To me, that was just too historic to pass up, and to where we just simply, watch it happen and then it just goes by the wayside. I'm not saying that's what would have happened. However, I kind of didn't want to take the chance, if you will. And so I hope that kind of explains the genesis of the track, and we can talk more about it whenever you're ready.
Yes, of course. I mean, but it was a terrific initiative. You know, Dr. Andre, you're a historian. You write about moments in time when things happen. This is one of the moments when something great happened to a Dominican, by a Dominican, for Dominica, at the pinnacle, at the very pinnacle of sports in the world. I mean, this is the world stage. This is the very best that you can do, the highest height that you can get. What are your thoughts on all of this in terms of history? How will history remember this moment and remember Thea?
Well, let me say good evening to your listeners. Let me say good evening to the fellow panelists. Good evening to the radio station that has made this interview possible. It's obviously a momentous occasion. It's of us a significant achievement of Thea LaFond. But let us be honest here. What she's done is the very negation of what's happening in Dominica. because she's depended on years of honest toil. She's depended on years of sacrifice. She's depended on living on limited fund. She is depending on achieving her goals through effort, through significant Herculean effort. And these are the values are conspicuous by their absence in Dominica as we speak. But she is sufficiently knowledgeable that one of the first things she said after this wonderful victory, she says she hoped it would light a fire under the feet of the political directorate. She issued a statement, and I'm paraphrasing, just give us the land and we'll take care of building a track for young budding athletes to try to follow in their footsteps. The fundamental question is this: to what extent are we committed to success through honest toil as opposed to fly by night investments, as opposed to having success through nefarious means? So while we applaud what this young woman has done, we cannot be too optimistic that those values will transcend into real action in Dominica, because the ethos in Dominica now is a very negation and a very abortion of those values that has caused her to reap this great success. And it is up to us to try to reclaim those values. And I heard Lennox doing a great job today, as usual, about Thea, the Thea phenomenon, the whole question of the sporting history in Dominica. We are probably the only Eastern Caribbean island which has not seen it necessary to build a stadium where athletes can hone their craft. And one of the callers on the radio station today, Mr. G, said that an Olympic swimming facility was promised to Dominica years ago. Wasn't there supposed to be a couple test matches at the Windsor Park a couple of months ago that we'd paid a few $1 million to get the rights to host, and that somehow, despite the monies being expended to build lights, they never materialized? So as somebody correctly said, this is not just about a track, it's about an attitude towards certain areas of enterprise. What value do we place on these? And the sad indictment is that not much. We've had a long, illustrious sporting history, not just in athletics, but also in cricket, also in football, and so on and so forth, and other sports. And what has been our national commitment to the preservation of those who achieved so much in the past? To set a light under the feet of those who are coming forward, the younger ones, to give them some type of inspiration, some type of example to emulate. What about the Grand Bay Field? What is the status of it? What about the Goodwill Field where they had the Goodwill Junior High School, I think it was called? What is its status? What is the status of the basketball court up at Stock Farm? What sports do you play in the Windsor Park? Your answer is as good or as bad as my own. We lack the commitment to those values that has caused this young lady to transcend in such a fundamental manner. You see, it's all well and good to promise things after the fact. What about before? Why do we have to wait until Thea succeeds so spectacularly to come up with huge pronouncements that we will have a track in 1 year's time? So if she hadn't won, would we have that commitment, which you and I know will never materialize? Because that's not the focus. It's not the focus at all. The focus is on get rich quick schemes, not by Dominicans, but by foreigners, Gasson. So what Thea has done is a reminder that the value that we are espousing today was not always that way. In the past, we've achieved great success on those values that we cherished. Our sporting heroes. Some of us don't remember anything about cricket beyond Irving Shillingford. Some of us don't remember anything in terms of our soccer successes other than a few footballers here and there and so on. There's no institutional history because it's not important. What is important is, as I said, the brown paper bags and the mysterious accounts and the edifices that spring up all over Dominica, and we don't know from whence they came. It is not related to the hard work that has brought Thea so much recognition. So this is where we are today. This is more than just about Thea. It's a sad commentary on Dominica. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Very well said and very well put in the context. But Thompson, you've been very, very involved in sports from way back when. You've always been a sports enthusiast, a sports player yourself. You played sports yourself, and you've done a lot for sports. And I want you to same question to you. What do you make of this moment? I mean, this is really a moment for Dominica, for Thea, and I plan to, and I hope that we can do this. I would like to reach out to her and her family and invite her to accept an invitation from us to recognize her as a Kudos national hero. We would like to do that. You know, we have done it for several people who are very deserving of it, like Sir Brian Arlene and some of these other people there. And we would like to do the same for Thea so she can get a lot of accolades from people who have known her well, who really truly know her well and can talk about her life and how she's inspired them and changed their lives in a meaningful way. But I want to go over to you, Tom, to give us your thoughts because we have to get into business later on the other topics. But right now, let's take some thoughts on Thea and give her the acknowledgement and the accreditation that she really deserves. Let me go over to you, Thompson, to do that.
Well, good night, Mr. G, and as well, good evening to the many listeners, Dr. Andre, Honorable Lennox Linton, and of course my buddy Sam. It's good to see you, man. It's been a while, and I'm just so proud of you, and really thank you for the song. You know, it's really nice. It's fitting tribute. You know, it's quite a fitting tribute to Fear, and wow, I mean that moment over the weekend when Fear won gold, and not only Fear, but just a few hours before, we had the goal from Julian Alfred from St. Lucia. And it took me back, you know, over 30 years. And it is interesting because when, as the secretary of the Dominica Amateur Athletic Association, which I was from 1988 to 1994, when we worked to get Dominica into the International Olympic Committee, it was for just those kind of moments, because you have to remember in the late 80s, early 90s, we had another triple jumper in the name of Jerome Romain, who was in the same position. He was number 3 in the world. And I remember in 1991, I accompanied Jerome and another very good sprinter, Herman Joseph, and we also had this Stephen Aker, the 1500 meter runner, Harris, and a few other athletes who all of them in the day could have done well. And I remember in 1991, Jerome actually won a medal in triple jump. He got a bronze medal in triple jump in 1991, and the Olympics were going to be held in 1992. And Jerome could not compete. He could not compete. He was number 3 in the world, but he could not compete because Dominica was not a member of the International Olympic Committee. And when I realized the kind of talent that we had, we were talking about persons who could win at that level, guys like Bruce Phillip in the 400 meters. And he said, no, we have to do something about it. Dominica must become a member of the International Olympic Committee. And that's what gave me the courage to actually begin that mission. And in doing my research, I found out that St. Lucia and St. Kitts were also not members. So I made the approach to those 2 countries, and they agreed. that I would become the kind of the official spokesperson to make the presentation on behalf of those 3 countries to be part of the International Olympic Committee. That story I've given in the past, but I will probably for another night. But the end result of that was that we started that process in 1991 in Malta, traveled to Malta, made the initial appeal, got the support of Prince Edward and the head of the International Athletic Association to plead on our behalf. And one of my strongest points that I made in arguing for Dominica was the tremendous talent that we had in Dominica. I remember reminding them that we had cricket talent. De Freitas was big in cricket at the time from Dominica. Frank Bruno, the boxer, with Dominican roots and so on. And I talked about the fact that Jerome Romain, who had just medaled in international competition, could not go to the Olympics because we were not members, and that was wrong. That needed to change. And we were not able to get into the Olympics in 1992, although I traveled to Barcelona in 1992, again to make the plea directly to the International Olympic Committee, using those names, using those talents, because in my mind, I had vision of Dominican athletes being able to get the rightful place, because we have the natural talent, it is there. And so when I saw over the weekend, both Thea and the St. Lucian athlete, Alfred, that brought so much joy to me, because it took 30-something years, for us to realize it. But it came, and that is something that could have happened a long time before for Dominica. And the example I give, Mr. G, is we had such is our talent in Dominica, that we had an exceptionally talented 400-meter runner. And when the inter-school games were held, the inter-island, call it the inter-island games, we used to compete against the other islands in the Windward Islands. And he beat Kirani James. Every time he was beating Kirani, he was better than Kirani James at the age of 16, 17, right? The difference between him and Kirani James would go back and train in an all-weather track. And this young man from Dominica, who was more talented, who was better than Kirani James at that age, he could not continue, and he just dropped out, and Kirani has gone on and is doing really well. I could very well medal again in the Olympics, setting a record that no other athlete has set any time in the world. This could have been a Dominican athlete doing those exploits, but it is not possible because we've not invested in the infrastructure. And so I think it's truly a wake-up call. And as Thea said, that should light a fire under the authorities in Dominica to wake up. Do something about it. When I was there in the early 90s, we were talking about an all-weather track. We were already discussing, we were already making plans. In fact, the United Workers' Party government, to its credit, had as part of its plan for the Windsor Park Stadium an all-weather track. That was in its plan. That was the stadium that was already started by United Workers' Party, and it was all thrown into the sea. It was destroyed. In its place, we have what this government. So what we have is a government without the foresight, without the understanding that what we see happen. So what Thea did for Dominica, in closing, what Thea did for Dominica in just basically one minute of jumping to put Dominica on the map in such a spectacular manner, that would have cost us, if we had to advertise Dominica, that would have cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. It would have probably taken 20 years to get that level of recognition that we obtained just in that split moment. So that shows you the power of sports. It shows you the power of what we have in Dominica and how we need to nurture that talent. And so I'm just tremendously happy to see that we have come this way, that we have medaled in the Olympics. It is a big deal because only 102 countries in the world have in fact medaled at the Olympics. So we are one of those 102 countries. And so it's something that I'm just tremendously proud of and happy to see that Thea has accomplished it. Congratulations again to her. And also the support that she received from the Dominica Olympic Committee. I understand that she got some support which allowed her to move away from having to work and then train to just focus on the training. and that paid off, and we are really thankful for that.
Yes, we all have to be very thankful for that. Now, just as I go to Lennox, I hope Lennox is with us. As I go to Lennox, I wanted to just say, look, Thea's done more than that. Thea has also caused people like Sam George to come out and make big songs. I remember Sam had made a few songs before, and after I spoke with Sam a few days ago, he said to me, "But you know, I have endless songs that I've done." But I remember there were two other songs that Sam sent to me that I seem to recall were very historic. I think there was one song, and maybe you'll tell us about it a little bit after Lennox. There was one song he did when I think there were two women who were murdered in Dominica. I think both of them were murdered by the boyfriends. They better, the other halves. And then he made a song on this, and I never heard that song actually, and and I'm certainly looking forward to listening to that song because something must have inspired him to do that when two beautiful women in Dominica were murdered, very maybe just a few days or a couple of days apart by their boyfriends. It's happening in a small country, 71,000 people. But Lennox, I wanted to say to Lennox as he comes in there that PLR4 has been on Lennox's mind for a long time, long before this. I remember hearing Lennox talking about TLR4 for a very long time, way back when, giving her a lot of support. So I'm happy to ask you, Lennox, to give us your thoughts now on TLR4 and what she has accomplished.
Sheldon, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Good evening to Dr. Andre, Dr. Fontaine, Lambie, and Mr. Sam George. Good evening, sir. Good to see you. Sheldon, it's really a joy and an honor for me to take this opportunity to congratulate Thea LaFond on a truly remarkable achievement. And to thank, first of all, her parents who nurtured her through this dream and the ecosystem of support that she has had in the United States, in Dominica here as well. And in the United States because Thea left here when she was 5 years old. And her life has been in the United States. But when we pause to consider the enormity of the accomplishment, Olympic Games started 1896, and Dominica was only able to participate in the Olympic Games 100 years later in 1996 for the first time. For the first time. And Dominica finds itself in 2024 receiving its first gold medal at the Games in 2024, thanks to the work of Thea LaFond. And Thea LaFond has not been the only one, the only Dominican who has attempted to compete on that global stage, carrying the flag of Dominica. She just happens to be, right now, the most successful of them all. And that is not by accident. It took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of effort. It took her ability to bring values, the values of hard work and so on, to the vision of becoming the best in the world and competing successfully on the international stage. But it was not easy. And I want to recognize that tonight because we have a tendency to believe that what we saw on Saturday over the weekend is some overnight thing. It just happened. It took a lot of sacrifice. And this is a young lady who has been in international competition for 13 years. 13 years. She was at the 2011 World Youth Championships in France. She was at the 2012 World Junior Championships in Spain. She was at the 2014 Commonwealth Games and the 2015 Pan Am Games and the NACAC Championships. She didn't medal at those events. In 2016, she entered Olympic competition for the first time. She was doing about 12 meters at the time, not more than that. The gold medal 8 years later is for a jump of 15.02 meters. When she started in Olympic competition in 2016, she was barely doing 12 meters. She placed 37th. She went from there 2017, I think it was. She competed in the World Championships and the World Indoor Championships. She still didn't medal. And she had begun to receive some support from the local Olympic Committee, the Dominica Olympic Committee, with funds that that committee receives from the International Olympic Committee. And there were times when the local authorities considered whether it was worth it to continue to give her the support because there were no medals to show for the international competition that she was attending and participating in and working hard to excel in. And then in 2018, she won bronze at the Commonwealth Games in Australia and at the NACAC Championships in Canada. Between 2019 and 2021, she competed unsuccessfully at the Pan Am Games, the World Championships, and the Olympic Games. She was in Tokyo. Improved significantly on what she did in Rio, but not good enough to make the medals. In 2022, she won silver at the Commonwealth Games in England and gold at the NACAC Championships. And I want to note it was at that point, at the point that she rose to international acclaim, when she was definitely now in the category of world champion, that the government came up with a 200,000 EC dollar award to her. It's about 73,000 US dollars, which would no doubt have been significant in allowing her to continue to train train full time and not have to go to her job. But all of those times were challenging times because she's in the Maryland area. And at one point in the past couple of years, the place where she was training became more expensive. And so they had to get someplace else. At that point, of course, she is married to her coach, Aaron Gatson, who now is heavily invested now in the success of his wife. And the story is told of them putting together a triple jump training facility for her at a cricket club in Colombia. 40 foot long, 40 meters long, 15 meters wide. They put two long pieces of wood as the run-up, and they themselves, with the assistance of friends, dumped 7 tons of sand to make the pit for her to train. Right? And it is coming off the back of that kind of hard work and sacrifice and focus on the ultimate goal that she emerged this year. She emerged this year as with the gold medal in the World Indoor Championships in England and the gold medal at the Olympic Games in France. A truly remarkable achievement that didn't come overnight, that didn't come easy, but lives with us as a testimony of the character of Thea LaFond. The vision she had, the values she brought, the fundamentals she put towards the accomplishment of that vision, and her success in achieving it, not just for herself, but for the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And tonight we say thanks in a big, big way. And having said that, I'm now jumping on to something she said the night of her victory, that there need to be track and field facilities in Dominica. for the young people, because they should not necessarily have to leave with Dominica for them to be able to run with one another, compete against one another, and prepare themselves where there is that dream, there is that talent and capability for world competition. They should be able to do it or do some of it at home at the very least. And you know, it's interesting that that came at this time with the gold medal. By the way, for all of those, and I think Thompson is one of them, they like to do this measurement called per capita, um, per head of population. We now have more Olympic medalists than America per head of per capita. We have more Olympic medals than with the little one we have more per capita than America. We have 1.3 something per head of population. America has 0.9. Right? Per 100,000 population. America has 0.9. We have 1.3 per 100,000 in the population. So we are ahead of America in that regard. For those who like the per capita measurement. But to say that in Dominica now, what is happening? What is happening? We just passed the budget, and Thea LaFond is talking about a fire that needs to be lit under the authorities to ensure that this athletic training facility happens. Well, let me say tonight to Thea LaFond and to Dominica's at home and abroad, there has been provision in the national budget for a synthetic Olympic track. It has been there for the past 2 or 3 years. $1.25 million. So far, not a cent has been spent. But it is in the budget as an item to be done. And for 2 years, no money has been spent. In terms of sports overall, there's supposed to be a national multi-purpose sports complex that $500,000 was budgeted for in the last financial year. Nothing was spent. You were supposed to have renovated the youth center, talking about the youth and sports, $250,000, nothing spent. You're supposed to have constructed tennis and netball courts in Portsmouth, $300,000, nothing spent. There were supposed to be multi-purpose courts at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, forecourt, $200,000, nothing spent. They're supposed to have rehabilitated playing fields and facilities around the country, $800,000 in the last budget, nothing spent. They were supposed to have rehabilitated Matutus Park in Grand Bay, $300,000, nothing spent. They were supposed to have strengthened the Dominica Youth Business Trust, again, youth and sports, $200,000, nothing spent. They were supposed to have provided a homeowner's grant to youth, persons under 40 years, $1.5 million, nothing spent. The Windsor Park Sports Stadium was supposed to have received an electronic scoreboard, $390,000, nothing spent. The Windsor Park Sports Stadium was supposed to have seen phase 4 of the infrastructure and lighting program, $6.25 million, nothing spent. I'm talking about the budget of 2023-2024. Money approved, nothing spent. $4.6 million approved for improvement works at the Windsor Park Sports Stadium with respect to the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup, not 1 cent spent. So provision of $16.5 million in the budget of 2023-2024, the 1 year period that ended on the 30th of June of this year, $16.5 million on youth and sports matters. Absolutely not 1 red cent spent. And so you understand the significance of the call from Dominica's new Olympic champion, that a fire be lit under the authorities to ensure that things happen. where they're supposed to happen, where there's a commitment, where there's an agreement as to what we need, as to what the young people require to help them with the pursuit of their dreams of sporting excellence and success in international competition. Well done, Thea. Well done.
Very true. Very true. Very well done, Theo. But Lennox, as I indicated to you some time ago, on a WhatsApp note, any assistance you can give for us to get our Kudos for Heroes committee to have an opportunity to invite Thea and her family for us to recognize her as a Kudos national hero. We'd appreciate whatever assistance you have, and anybody who's in contact with the family. We'd
Yeah.
really appreciate, putting her on that pedestal because I think she deserves to be there. From what you've said, Lennox, I mean, look at the situation that she's had to fight. I mean, she's had very little to work with, and
Yep.
yet she's managed to do all of this, to accomplish this. It's nothing.
And the other thing is that the majority of young people who win Olympic medals, gold medals, they do so well before 30 years. It's not many people who get their first Olympic medal or gold medal at age 30. And that shows you the perseverance and the resilience that has been involved in Thea's journey to get this done. And Thompson was making the point about the young Dominican athlete who was successfully competing against Kirani James. And he used that to show what happens when there is support and when there is no support. And what has happened with us in Dominica to kill the dreams of so many of our young people who could have made it much further in the field of sports. And I hope this Thea LaFond success and the Thea LaFond reflection on what comes next beyond this, as she thinks not just about herself, but of other people who want to make it like her to the world stage and succeed. What is necessary for us here in Dominica to be done?
Yes, thank you, Lennox. And Dr. Andre, I'm going to come to you in a minute for you to talk about what is happening in the Jamaica situation, because Jamaica has a story. I mean, they did what we were supposed to have done. They did that many years ago. And look at the role that their athletes are playing in World Games and in the Olympics and so on. Now, Lennox, you're right. Thanks for turning off your mic. But before I come to you, Dr. Andre, I wanted to go back to Sam. Sam, for all what you've heard there tonight already, you'll likely hear a little more later. The fact of the matter, it seems to me there is a new song in the making for you. There's enough material here for you to make another song. You've heard all the tribulations and trials that she's had to go through in order to reach the pinnacle of her career. I mean, the grit, the guts, the stick with it, the resilience, I mean, you really have to have guts, I mean, you see kids in the Olympics at 16 and 17 and so on. And then she's 30 and she decided, listen, I'm not giving up against all odds. I mean, when you think about having to find a way to dump 5 tons of sand in a cricket stadium, a little space you get in a cricket stadium just to facilitate you to be able to train. The Jamaicans don't have to go through that. The US athletes don't have to go through that. So you can see what Thea had to go through. Sam, your further thoughts on this? And will you write another song for us?
Yeah, as I said earlier, Thea was on This Week in Interview, and so everything Lennox was talking about in terms of her determination and the work she had to put in. She talked about a lot of that. She also talked about taking care of your mental health and so forth, because there is no way it can be easy, and to compete at that level, it has to take a toll on a person. It has to take a toll on a human being, and she persevered through, which is one of the reasons why some of the lyrics in the song talk about for sweat and tears, because I recognize not only that she could have chosen to compete for the US, right? And someone else mentioned that earlier, but she could have chosen to compete for the US because that way she would have access to every bit of facility she needed, all access to all kinds of training and everything else she needed. However, she chose to compete for Dominica, which in of itself is, as we say, no matter where we go, as Dominicans, we are Dominicans. We always be Dominicans, and that's always first in our heart. So she has to be not just commended. I heard people talking about there needs to be statues and all of that. And all of that is fine, and all of that is great. But I think she would more appreciate getting the tracks that she talked about, the and as people have said before, we've heard talk about getting an Olympic pool and all of that. So I think she would appreciate more the facilities being made available locally, so our young people can have something to look forward to. Because as you also have already said, there are plenty more Thea LaFonds in Dominica. They just don't have the facilities, they don't have the encouragement, they don't have what have you to make it happen. And who knows, I mean, the long and short of it is, we cannot make this achievement a one-off, or we can't make it where it takes another 10 years for us to record another Olympic winner. So yeah, I agree. We have plenty of work to do, and I would encourage the young people of Dominica right now to demand. Did I hear the Prime Minister say by next year so we'll have an Olympic track?
By August next year.
Okay, so that's a year, right? So I would like to see the young people, and just as the older folks are, just as everyone is demanding, I'd like to see people really push him on that, and make sure that it happens, because it has been promised. Things have been promised, and 4 or 5 years down the road, it's nowhere to be seen. But this one in particular, I do not believe we should sit on it, and we should just let it fade away and go by the wayside. And then the next time we have a winner for whatever efforts that person puts in, we are back here again, or people are back here, being happy and talking about how great this person is. All well and good for the person, but the country has to support. We have to support our people. And I know our people are we are reactionary sometimes, maybe all the time. So we wait when something happens for us to react, whether that is good or bad. And I think we've been making that mistake for too long. We have to be proactive. And I think someone asked a great question this morning. I was listening to Matt's program, and he asked, does the pastor or the priest wait until people have become Christians to build a church? That's a great question. And we know the answer. They do not. They build it and then they call people. So why can't we do the same with sports and everything else in Dominica? We love sports. We love watching other people play. We love watching other people win. What about our own people?
So yes, so thanks a lot for that, Dr. Andre. As I go to you, let me just right away recognize some of the people and thank some of the folks on Facebook. Quite a few people on Facebook, on various different Facebook pages, viewing and listening to what we're doing here tonight. And there's also people following us on YouTube. Let me just say I appreciate you being with us tonight. We'll try to see if we can read one or two of your comments a little later. I just want to take the opportunity as well to say to Lambi that we can take a call. I mean, so if a call comes in at any moment now, just interrupt us and we'll take the call. So you can give out the numbers now before I go to Dr. Andre, and then we will take the calls as they come in, because I know people will want to express their views on what is going on with this magnificent win of Thea LaFond.
The Global View and Q. The numbers are as follow: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, and 305-432-9624. Let me run those numbers one more time: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257, and 305-432-9624. Back to you, Mr. J.
Yes, Dr. Andre, I was saying that you know, all of what we're talking about is just basic, just standard operating procedure. I mean, Jamaica did it. Why? Because they wanted their athletes to develop and grow and excel at the highest level. And that is what is happening now. Imagine Jamaica did that, what, maybe 9 years ago or thereabouts, and they put in all these facilities. Imagine if we had done that 9 years ago, how much further Thea and people like her would have been. Way ahead. She didn't have to wait until she's 30. She could have done what many young people are doing, whether they're Chinese or Americans or British, when they're 15 and 16 and 17. She had that ambition, she had the grit, and she had the resilience to do it. You can see that from what she's done against all odds. Dr. Andre, your thoughts on that, and really what we missed the boat in not following the examples set by other nations like Jamaica.
Well, bear in mind that Jamaica's commitment to excellence in sport actually goes back decades. I mean, you had a great Jamaican sprinter in the 40s or 50s called Dr. Arthur Wint. On about 1976, you had a great Jamaican sprinter, I think 200 meters. I think he won gold medal during the Olympics in that course. When I was at Mona, universities, secondary schools all over Jamaica would have strong or stiff competition. They would aspire to go to the United States to get involved in what is called the pen relays. I think the pen relays are held in Pennsylvania, but I stand to be corrected. So that is a long-term goal that they've nurtured because they have been able to see, visionary that they are, that this is a way, along with music, to put Jamaica on the proverbial map. And we have to give them credit for that type of vision, for their commitment to sporting recognition. They've perfected it to a fine art. That's why every year you have Jamaica spitting out young speedsters, male or female, because it's a program, and it's one which Genesis goes back, as I said, decades. Obviously, they would have more resources than we have, but every journey begins with a small step. It's virtually inexcusable that in 2024, Dominica doesn't have a track, as LaFond, Thea has lamented. It shows the lack of commitment to that form of activity, where success is measured by how long you've been toiling in the wilderness. As you've said, she's 30 years old now, and she remained with it, even with minimal support. That is a value system that we have to nourish, that we have to cherish, that we have to nurture. That is what we have to nurture to achieve that type of success. Not a type of fly-by-night type of commitment where you expect to reap huge rewards with little real effort overnight.
Dr. Andre, can we take a little call? Lamy seems to be frantically waving to us. Lamy, let's take a call.
Good evening, caller. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead, please.
Love, life, light, healing, joy. Blessings to you, gentlemen. What's up?
Blessings to you, sir. How are you doing?
Giving thanks. The historical aspect of it I never heard prior to tonight. Dr. Fountain and Lennox Linton. Very interesting and unusual. And that is determination. I was telling that to Matt. If your adrenaline, and you would be chased by a wild animal, and what you would be able to do while being chased, to offer you $1 million. To do the same thing, you would not be able to do it. But what about you being offered $1 million is on the table, and you're watching 10, 15 people there competing, that same adrenaline kicks in with your will, your zeal, your determination, your training. So the potential, the untapped skills and talent in a people that have never gotten such an opportunity, and it just promises something started on the former administration or the past administration, and it was dogged up and thrown in the sea. And then you tell me you care about you and me? That is the sickening disease. And Soso said something. Soso said a lot of athletes, both men and women, are injured because of the lack of sporting facilities. Quite philosophical. I picked it up. I said, whoa, Aristotle on the run. So it is so sad to see. A lot of politicians cannot stand. I mean, they send the wives overseas and make the babies because the wives or the children should not honor a midwife or a nurse or whoever, because that's the person that helped to deliver you. So that's the level of discrimination. Can you imagine a little Boswade or Anthony or Linton, somebody come out somewhere and all of a sudden they become so popular, then everybody want to vote for them. So that's why they will not invest any time and effort and money into sporting activities and facilities, because all of a sudden a Usain Bolt arrives, Brian Lara arrives, and all of a sudden the popularity has gone to the dogs. So it is so sad to see the psychological game that is being played, using your own people as slaves and thinking you can tell me about history when we were being enslaved. It is right here. Thank you, Dr. Andre. Thanks, Dr. Fontaine and Lennox and everybody who are making an effort. I never heard the historical factors of Thea LaFond. I heard it from Thompson, having to do, not Thea, but Thompson talk about the introduction of the Olympics and all what he did and his efforts, and then Lennox come and tell us about Thea. So all who want to talk and think 100,000.
Lamy, did we lose him? Okay, it looks like it looked like his call may have dropped. All right, so maybe he can call back. If he's still there, let him go ahead. Otherwise, we'll just continue.
Yes, a few more calls coming in. Good evening, call. Are you there?
Yes, good evening, gentlemen.
Go right
Am
ahead.
I on?
Yes, you're on.
Right. Yes, good evening, gentlemen. First of all, my congratulations to Thea LaFond, and I'm very proud, and she has made Dominica proud. Now, gentlemen, I have a keen interest in athletics because I was in the 70s. I went to the grammar school. I was athlete of the year in the Dominica Grammar School. I got a cup. I was the athlete of the best athlete in grammar school. Then my father sent me to Barbados to school. I was the best athlete in my school in Barbados. And the biggest sports club in Barbados, the best sports club, wanted me to join, but I was just 16 years. I used to win the 100 meters, 200, 400, and all that. No. Anyway, at the time, can you imagine? Then you had Eugenia Charles, the Prime Minister, making a statement saying that sports is not a priority. This is a very ignorant statement, and I mean, it actually angers me. Because when you look at Usain Bolt, you know what Usain Bolt has done for Jamaica? I'm here in America, and everywhere I go, people ask me, where are you from? I say, I'm the Caribbean. They say, you from Jamaica? Everybody asking me if I'm from Jamaica. I say, no, I'm not from Jamaica. Then I tell them, if I tell you, I know what you're going to say already. When I tell them Dominica, they say the Dominican Republic. And so right now, one of my managers is on holidays in Jamaica. She and some people, about 5 of them. Everybody wants to go to Jamaica because of Usain Bolt. Now, that's a very ignorant statement for Prime Minister to say that sports is not a priority. So, gentlemen, we are way back. We are Dominica. Can you imagine as Miss LaFond has won, you hear the Prime Minister say, no, next year we'll have a track. Can you imagine? We should have done that 25, 30 years ago. And now, so that's like what Thea has done. It's like a slap in the face now to the prime ministers. And now they have to wake up and run and do things now. I mean, this is something else. We are 30 years behind time. And anyway, congratulations to Miss LaFond. She has made us proud. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You see now, you really, you want to take another call, Lambi? Let's go ahead, do that.
Yes. Caller, are you there?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
We not take a stage wrong and to put that business person again. Spotting another priority. I think painful. I still want to bring already. No priority, you put what you put.
Yes, I think I did get the message that the junior child started the sports stadium, but that was destroyed. Go ahead, Lambi, take another call.
Yes. Caller, please go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you all doing?
Well, not good like you at all, but working on it.
But I don't know how to put it. In St. Lucia, the St. Lucians prepared the people for a win or lose, knowing that they sent out some people outside there to participate at the Olympics. They set up a big screen in some parts of St. Lucia where hundreds and hundreds of people were gathered there and rooting for the lady that was on that track there. And she made it. She got silver. Look, that same lady, I think, got another silver again not really in
the 200 and blue.
Yeah, she got silver. So they prepared their people. But in Dominica, nobody didn't even hear much about Thea LaFond till she won, and everybody pricked her outside. You know how much it used to hurt me looking at them young children in the grammar school there at the back of between Coca-Cola and a little wooden shed they had in the grammar school yard, where the children were there doing long jump. They put some sand there for them. Now before they break down this place there. And the children should be using there to do their long jump. And every time I pass in and I say that I should be giving the coach hell, tell them why they're not asking their government to do something for them. You see the young people in the botanical gardens doing javelin. They be throwing discus, whatever name they're calling it there. And if these young children had proper facilities here for them to do that, you think there'll be a lot of CLF and maybe outside there. But no, we're too busy doing other things. They want bowling alley in the botanical garden. Who the hell here doing bowling? For some bowling alley in the botanical garden, taking millions of dollars to put into that, while we have young people that are willing to participate in sports they know about. They're letting them down. It's so damn sick, it's not funny. Have a blessed night, gentlemen.
And have a good one yourself. Lambi, let's just take one last call because I want to sort of try to wind down this session of the meeting. And so I will go to Dr. Andre and Thompson and Lennox for one more time after you take the call, and then we'll wind up that section and we'll go to some of the business that we have planned for tonight. Let's take the call, Lambi.
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Dominica. Good evening, St. Joseph. Congratulations to my country. I was celebrating last night in Texas too with the gold medal until I hear, happening now, scary it is in an interview. Well, from that moment I vex. I see the biggest hypocrite, the biggest scammer in the world, using that opportunity to excel itself. Mr. Linton, the national debt is $1,300 or $400 million. Can you tell the nation, in that kind of debt that we have, if there is anything important for Dominican young people, Dominican students, the young people of Dominica had an opportunity within that debt Dominica have of $1,300 million. Because the kind of debt we have, and only now scary talking about building a track and field. And that will make us feel bad. If the people smart in the world, they're checking about what kind of country is that? It's only now this man talking about track and field. So how this girl make it up there? And when they go and do their research, they only find out where this girl take most of her training in America. So when I see what happening in Dominica now, Scarrett is a user. Scarrett, you know, he's a lynch. He don't support the young people, but when they go out there and they work to get a name for themselves, he exalts himself. Mr. Linton, tell me, when all you had the thing in Portsmouth, where all you had it based on the finance, when all you honor this young lady, the following week, did the government endorse the honor? Did they say, oh yes, she deserved it? Did they congratulate all you for honoring the young lady for qualifying to be in the Olympic? I hear Dominicans was asking to put a billboard, at least 4x8 or 8x4 billboard, so that we have something to look to see. Okay, look our queen, look our hero, look our future. Did they do that in her honor? Right now, he finds it is hard to build a billboard, but he wants to give her a whole playing field. This guy is a crooked guy. He take everybody for a joke. Outsmarting playing Gino. He and his one more thing, sir, I must say. The young lady are talking about the grapefruit, the pink grapefruit is the national drink. And the baby rum is the national rum. That is not a coincidence. That's a conversation they had because all of them was in Dubai. They know what they're singing for. So God bless all you. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for that. Landy, as we'll go ahead now with some progress. I just wanted to sort of bring that session to an end. I mean, I will have to go to Lennox Linton right after you, Dr. Andre, because the caller asked him a question. Then I will go to Thompson. But did you want to say something, Thompson?
Yes, I just wanted to say, just before you go, you know, as the caller talked about the honor, what he was talking about is in June for the economic summit, we honored Thea LaFond. In fact, we are working on her coming to Dominica to accept her honor in person, but it's because she had to go to a meet the same weekend that we were having our award ceremony. She was not able to make it. But it shows, again, a United Workers' Party, our interest in sports and sports development, because we understand the importance of encouraging our young people. I mean, she was so elated. She could not come in person, but she took her time and made a wonderful video that we were able to play during the award ceremony, so Dominicans could see and to hear her. And people who listen to us on Sports Rap, we've been calling for billboards, Emmanuel Loblack, almost every time, saying you need to honor this lady. You need to do something more than you were doing. Where is the support? Where is the honoring? None of that is done, you know. So it's very unfortunate, but it shows again the difference in terms of vision. We've been working in this thing for many, many years. As I said, I'm not a Johnny come lately. I've been in this, you know, practically all my life, working for the young people and working to develop sports in Dominica. So that is something that we really have to do, because I understand the tremendous importance that sports play in the lives of the young people. And if you can develop, if you can get them to that level, as we see now with the tremendous what's going on with Alik and Hodge, you know, that's another example of how young people can aspire to do great things, you know, and in the process they help themselves, but in the process they pick up the country, you know. So we need to do a lot more of that, certainly.
Yes, and certainly I think we all can attest to the fact that when the United Workers' Party was in office, Ron Green, I remember him very well, was the Minister for Sports, and he did a considerable amount to elevate sports. He really was a sports enthusiast, and he worked very hard to elevate sports and to make a difference in young people's lives. Even today, in fact, Ron Green is retired from politics, but he's still doing a tremendous, he continues doing all this tremendous work in sports. And Dr. Andre, I just wanted to say this as well, that I recall that when it was not popular to talk about Thea LaFond, it wasn't popular because she wasn't winning anything. I heard Lennox Linton. I don't remember it as far back as his program on Between You and Me on Q95, but way back I heard Lennox Linton talking and promoting Thea LaFond when nobody else was interested in promoting Thea LaFond. So, Dr. Andrew, give me your closing thoughts on that before we move on to the next segment there.
Well, this Thea LaFond success holds some serious lessons for us. You see, it is good to support, or it is easy to support when you have rains that nourish the soil, and it is easy to support when someone is successful. But is it easy to success when someone is toiling to achieve his or her goals? And that is what this is what it makes us reflect on. Where were we when she was going through the travails of trying to be successful? When she needed help, were we there? Were we there as a society when literally hardship nailed her to a metaphorical cross? Or are we there only after she achieved success? And if we had given her the help that she needed at an earlier stage in her life, at least tried to anyway in some fashion, would she have achieved that success at an earlier age? Would her journey have been less challenging? I mean, someone made mention about Kirani James in, was it St. Kitts? I mean, he won the gold in the 400, years ago? Yes, he got significant training and development in the United States. And there's nothing wrong in getting the training and development in a foreign country. And the reason there's nothing wrong, it is because we've done so little to make provisions or provide training facilities to our own, that of necessity they have to seek that specialized training elsewhere. Thea got into Jamaica, then United States. That is the inevitable passage of someone who dreams of tremendous success in sports. And so, again, we're confronted with our own reality. We can either learn from it or we can continue on the same path, having our sports officials go on all expenses paid trips to these meets and so on, and having most of the aid that we get, a disproportionate amount of the aid, go on administrative or spent on administrative aspects of the function, as opposed to most of the money being used to provide facilities for young people. And that's part of the problem. It's a junket. How many of us want to volunteer when there are no free trips? Huh? How many? So these are some of the fundamental questions we have to ask ourselves. Why are we in this thing? Is it to see the development of the island? Or is it to see us, through that involvement, get certain privileges at the expense of others? So I hope with Thea's success, we can dream of a better landscape in terms of sporting excellence, and we can provide a little more set of opportunities for younger ones who, quite frankly, have very little option given the employment situation in Dominica. So that's my word on this.
Yes, and Lennox, I'm going to give you the last word on Thea, and then I would like you to, as you do that, to transition into the other topic that we are here to talk about, to create that link, to show the Dominican people the link between electoral and campaign finance reform and these budgets that we have been getting from year to year that have not really been delivering for the ordinary people in Dominica. Every time you started talking about some of the things that are provisions in the budget approved but nothing being spent on them. You started with sports, but there's a myriad of other areas where a lot of provisions are made in education, in agriculture, in all kind of things. No money is spent. So can you let's get going on that part as well as you wind up on Thea.
Thanks, Sheridan. On Thea, just to say that in the past few days, Dominica has been blessed with the biggest wave of international exposure and promotion in the history of the country. And we didn't get that from paying any marketing agency or buying any advertisements on some global network or the other. We got that because of the outstanding, the remarkable performance of Thea LaFond on the Olympic stage, winning gold in triple jump. One event, and we've seen a historical wave of international exposure and promotion for the Nature Island tourism product and whatever else we have to offer. People asking questions about us. And so when people talk about the $200,000 that the government awarded to Thea, after Thea had succeeded in international competition and won gold, that was after she proved herself before she got that contribution, which she put towards her further development and made us even more proud with this Olympic gold medal that she won at the weekend. She owes us, we owe her, she owes us nothing. We owe her a huge debt of gratitude. And we will be forever in her debt because of what her perseverance, her drive, her vision, her pursuit of excellence has succeeded in doing for us, the people of Dominica. And that is why investment in sports, in the infrastructure, in the facilities that will help young people to pursue their dreams is in the national interest. And so rather than wait for people to succeed before we opportunistically align with them and try to do this and that after they have succeeded, let us support them to succeed rather than show up to support after they have succeeded. Because without the support, the success will not be achieved. And some people, Thea has done a lot with the little that she received. I can tell you, there are people in Dominica, athletes in Dominica, who receive much more than her in terms of financial support and were not able to do as much as she did with it for herself and for the people of Dominica as a whole. I also note her comments about her St. Lucian sister, Julian Alfred, the newsprint sensation, the fastest woman in the world at 19 years, 23 years, sorry. She spoke about Julian Alfred's success at the World Indoor Championships, where she won the 60-meter event before Thea competed. And Thea reporting what a wonderful inspiration that was for her, a sister from a St. Lucian, from the sister island of St. Lucia, with whom in the course of training and preparing for these events and knowing each other in competition across the world, they had bonded. And what a wonderful inspiration it was for Thea doing her event afterwards with that gold medal that Julian had won just before her. It happened again on Saturday because Julian Alfred won the 100-meter event before Thea was confirmed as the champion in the triple jump. And you see that wonderful spirit of camaraderie, sisterly love growing among these athletes from the islands who this year in the OACS registering better success than we've ever seen in the past, which is wonderful and which tells us where we're heading. And that is why right now, as we look ahead, we must learn the lessons. Must learn the lessons of what it means to build teams for success, to make sure that we align properly with the vision that is ahead of us, and we allocate resources to the strategy for growth and development. We have not done that well in Dominica, and this budget that was just approved last week after debate in Parliament for just about a week gives us another example of how we do not align resources effectively to whatever strategy it is we have for building Dominica, for growing Dominica, for putting more jobs in Dominica, for getting more people to work, for getting more people to earn more money, for getting us to earn a better place in the trade of goods and services around the world. We don't do a very good job of that. And again, when we talk this year about spending of $1.6 billion with a capital budget that will be over $900 million, and tax revenue that is hovering around the $400 million mark, but our expenses are so much more than that. And our revenues from citizenship by investment in terms of the budget profile this year is 63%. The revenues from citizenship by investment is 63% of total revenue. But in presenting this budget, the finance minister didn't feel it necessary to talk anything about where we are going, because we have just increased the price of citizenship from 100 to 200,000 US dollars. We have made adjustments. We have given a commitment to the global community that we're going to bring in all the money from the sale of citizenships into the consolidated fund and spend it from the consolidated fund. The early evidence is that we're still not doing that. The plan and the budget to raise $760 million from citizenship by investment next year is still a plan to have the bulk portion of the country's resources outside of Dominica, notwithstanding the commitments we have made to the international community that will bring in all the money and will spend all the money from Dominica. So when you look at those things, you ask yourself, where are we really going with our resources being mismanaged to such a degree? In other parts of the world, where people's resources are so willfully mismanaged and they suffer as a result of that, they find ways to change their government, be it through elections or otherwise. A lot of them do it through elections. In Dominica, the election route has been shut off from the people of Dominica because there are all these illegalities. There's all this illegal spending. There's all this big money purchasing results in elections in Dominica. There are all these brothers and sisters who live overseas somewhere else and who get paid to come in to vote to affect the results. There are all these taints on the process for elections in Dominica that have it going in the results going in one direction and one direction only, over and over and over again. We're the only country in the Caribbean that has not changed the government in 25 years. The only one in the Caribbean that has not changed the government in 25 years. What? Not because we are any better off than any of the other islands in the Caribbean. As a matter of fact, we're worst. The former minister of housing, Reginald Usher, told us we've been last for too long in this world and behind in too many things. We are last in so many areas of economic and social development. And yet, we are the ones who find it impossible to change the government. It's not because the government is doing well. The government is doing well for itself, but certainly not for the people of Dominica. And elections ought to have consequences. In Dominica, the consequence of having an election under the tainted system is that one party that abuses the resources of Dominica and looks after itself and its foreign friends is the one that is going to prevail. And Dominicans have to find a way around that. They have to find a way beyond that, because those who are benefiting from what is going on right now are not the ones who are going to change it. We have a big problem on our hands right now with all the monies that we say we have budgeted and all that is supposed to come from the Citizenship by Investment program. We have problems with the money coming in to the country. Now, I suspect that if we had dutifully gone the route of what was suggested to us by the international community of bringing in all the money to Dominica, and not leaving any of it outside. The problems being experienced right now with major players that we have given carte blanche with significant projects in our infrastructure development and to raise the money from citizenship sales and so on and get it into Dominica. There's where the problems are. We have a hotel on the West Coast that is shut down right now because the developer cannot bring in money to Dominica and has some issues with their domestic account at the bank in Dominica. What this says is that we have a serious problem that the government is not addressing and has not addressed. The correspondent banking relationship that the National Development Bank enjoys with the Bank of America is under serious threat. Is under serious threat. And the National Bank, if it doesn't protect itself from actors in the CBI arrangements that are suspect, and of course problems for the international in the international transfer of money. If they cannot protect themselves, they will lose the correspondent banking relationship, and they'll be reduced to operate like a credit union. You'd be aware, Sheridan Gregoire and others, that years ago, the banks, the international banks in Dominica, shut down CBI passport accounts, And we have been telling this government for years, you need to pay attention to the integrity with which this scheme is run. You need to ensure that criminal elements have not infiltrated it, and you're not dealing in any way, shape, or form with the proceeds of crime, or you can be held up and accused of any kind of money laundering or any of those things, financing of terrorism, any of those ills that plague the global community, such that the major players want to protect the security architecture around their countries from those kinds of ills. And we have misbehaved, there's no question about that. And we have to come to terms with that misbehavior now, because the bells that are ringing are not good. So yes, we just passed the budget. Yes, we're hearing that the government is going to parliament soon with electoral reform. But what reforms? Are they going to be the reforms that the people need? Is the government going to listen and go to parliament with sensible reforms? Or is the government going to provoke people into revolting because it will not listen, it will not hear?
Lennox, let me open up the discussion a little bit here, because obviously you've hit the nail on the head. What is going on there is that when you start talking about the budget, we can see just from the examples or the case of the sporting activities and sporting facilities, you can see what the disaster that's happening with the budgetary provisions. No money is being spent on those. But the same thing, I'm sure, applies to many other areas of activity and investments that are provided for in the budget approved and in the estimates, and they're just not being used. Maybe the money is just not forthcoming. And then, of course, you talk about the international corresponding banks in terms of transfer of funds. The fact of the matter is, if the country depends 65% of its budget is dependent on this foreign proceeds coming in from the CBI program, if they're not able to come in because of the same problem of the international corresponding banks, how is anything going to be realized or produced from those budgets? And isn't that the reason why we are not seeing this? But Lennox he touched on the question of electoral reform. And he touched on the question of what people do when these wannabe dictators that entrenching themselves in governance and will not give up. And it seems as if in our case in Dominica, the way we're proceeding with electoral reform is clear that the government does not want to come out of place. But I believe the people of Bangladesh showed that people's power can make a difference. And when people protested in Bangladesh, this lady left the country and she resigned immediately, and she's gone. So this government, I think, like every other government in our region, has to understand that democracy has to be allowed to prevail. And if you go into the electoral reform, You have to do the proper electoral reform based on best practices. But I also want you to give me your comments on those things, but also on the actual budgetary provisions, Thompson, because I'm sure you've looked at what has happened in this recent budget. Absolutely no difference from what had happened for years and years. We do in these budgets. No report as to what is the outcomes, what are the deliverables, and where, in fact, you could measure what was delivered from those budgets. Nobody's saying, and no report from any ministries on that. Your thoughts, Thompson?
You know, Mr. G, you heard Lennox describe how many occasions monies have been allocated for in the budget, and there has been little or no spending. You know, the all-weather track was in there over 2 years, and all of these different monies put aside for sports and so on, and not a dollar being spent. Part of the problem is that this government has set itself up for major failure in that it is budgeting with more than 60% of its revenues for that budget coming from the CBI, state of the CBI program. And that is a problem. For countries to be successful, they need to have at least 65 to 75% of their revenues being generated internally. By that I mean through tax and other fees and so on coming from the government. But that's not the case. We are down to 33%. So you have effectively set yourself up for failure. So you want to have $1 billion budget, but at the end of the day, you simply do not have the resources to sustain that $1 billion budget. So two things happen. You incur a lot more debt if you're serious about your capital projects. If you're serious about doing something in the country, you must incur additional debt, or you simply incur arrears, or you simply don't do anything. And that's where we found ourselves, and it's because this government has failed to actually grow the economy for so many years. We have not had solid economic growth or broad-based growth. Yes, we talk about growth, 3-4%, but that has not been broad-based. Is not the kind of growth that has generated jobs. It's not the kind of growth that has generated increased revenues to the government even. So we're in a very difficult situation. And when you compound that with what is going on around the CBI program, all of these queries that have been made to the government, the fact that foreign countries, especially the European Union, is concerned that the monies from the CBI program is not coming into the country. And these countries have to threaten our government to say, well, if you're not going to bring those monies in, we may very well remove that privilege from you. I mean, we have a serious problem. So, I would really like to see more changes in terms of a greater focus on how you can generate activity within the country. And that means putting more people to work. That means better paying jobs. That means improved services for the people. It means as well government that will have enough resources to meet its obligations to local persons, a government that will have enough resources to allow government workers to maintain their living standard. Because what we have had in Dominica over many, many years is a gradual eroding of the ability of public servants to maintain their living standards. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that practically every single public servant is worse off today in terms of their ability to purchase stuff, in terms of their wealth, in terms of their income. They're relatively worse off today than they were 3-4 years ago, because their incomes is not keeping pace with their spending. Their income is not keeping pace with the rate of inflation. And that is because the government has not been able to offer any kind of increases. It's been 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So we have a serious problem. And yet we continue to have this $1 billion budget that's going nowhere. So it's a lot of fluff. It's a lot of conning of the people, of fooling of the Dominican public that this government has engaged in. And building false hope and really not fulfilling its promises. And it's time we begin to call this government out. It's time we begin to call them out on their budgeting process, because that is what they're doing. It's really a kind of fraud to say you're going to be doing this, you're going to be doing the other. You promise it, and every year it just reappears in your budget like nothing happened. I mean, the budget is supposed to be done over over 1 year. When you go to the budget, 2024, 2025 estimates supposed to be the budget for that fiscal year, for the 12 months, So don't put it in if you know you
but
have absolutely no plan to do
Thompson,
it. Mhm.
let me just say this though. Let me say this
Mhm.
though. I hear the point about the revenues, and certainly the tax revenues are declining, which indicates that the economy is not growing.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding all the 4.4% and 5% they tell you, the economy is not growing. The tax base is not expanding. Um, Not enough. More people are not working so that they can pay more, can get more into the tax purse, right? But for that to happen, there have to be significant investments.
Mhm.
Now, those investments can come from the private sector, foreign direct investment, local investors, or they can come from the government's public sector investment program, right? Past couple of years, it has largely been the government's public sector investment program in infrastructure mainly. But go back to the 1990s when Eugenia Charles was in office, the Freedom Party, and there was this concern that we all shared about the scarcity and the cost of development finance, development capital, money to build out the infrastructure and to get into investment in the critical growth engines of the economy so that it could expand out and create more opportunities. That is where citizenship by investment came from. That is where the idea was born, to give us a source of development capital that was less expensive than what was emerging on the market, or would provide a solution to the difficulties that the administration at the time was seeing. And the administration at the time was not the only one. Other administrations in the Caribbean, small island states, were seeing it the same way. We have had great success in assembling significant development capital for our economic growth needs in Dominica. And in fact, where the last few years are concerned, Dominica has raised enough money from the Citizenship by Investment program to do a lot of the things that are not being done. The money is the problem. The money is not coming into Dominica, and this government must be made to answer for that. That's one of the reasons we're going to court, to hopefully retrieve some of those monies and to get them to come into the consolidated fund, because we understand it will be for a while that you have this development capital, not to sit down there or to be building mansions for people in various parts of the world, but to do the work of Dominica, do the expansion of the economy work of Dominica, so that more jobs will be created, so that more opportunities will be available for people to get involved in business and to make greater success of their entrepreneurial ventures. That, because that has not happened, we have the situation where the money that we're supposed to be using to lift the country out of where it is in somebody else's control, while we're struggling with lower revenues from taxes, which is a result of the economy not growing. But in order to grow the economy, we needed this money that we got to fix the growth engines and to get them delivering better results. We don't have that because the money is under somebody else's control overseas. And the people of Dominica are sitting down, eyes wide shut, watching that happening and saying, well, where are we going? What is happening to us? Are we going to have a snap election in December? Hello. The country is being destroyed by this group of people in Dominica, and they've taken care of themselves royally well. Thompson speaks of public servant salaries that have not increased. Well, they know that salaries need to be increased. Why do they know that? They took 50% increase for the prime minister last September and 23% for the other ministers. They know the scale of salary increases that are necessary for people to be able to see their way, except that they're just taking it for themselves. They're fixing up themselves. Everybody else can head to hell. They're taking care of themselves.
Let me just say this, Lennox. You spoke about this period when Eugenia Charles was there, and then there was a recognition that there was a insufficient revenue being generated. And it's in that era that the CBI program came up, and Grace Tong and the Laya River Hotel and so on. In that time, I was president of the DIC. You were president after, I think, after I was president, Lennox.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
Right. But I was on the DIC and also on the board of the Employees Federation. You know, when we recognize that same problem that you're talking about, the failure to generate sufficient funds, we question the policies that the government was delivering at the time. And we demanded that a policy review committee be set up, comprising of the board of the DIC and the cabinet of the junior. We got that done, and we sat with the cabinet regularly and discussed policy. We didn't try to make policy because we're not the policy directorate, but we certainly attempted to influence the policy in the right direction. But I wanted to ask on Sam. We didn't bring you here to talk about all these issues, but I don't know how closely you've been following the discussions around the economy in Dominica. But did you want to make any comment as to how you see this economy and what you see in terms of the budgeting process and what you see in terms of electoral reform process that is taking place here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I look around, I see, I listen, I pay attention to what's happening in Dominica. I probably couldn't be able to speak to it with the eloquence of Dr. Fountain and Lennox Linton, but I see what's happening to our young people, and quite frankly, that is always my concern, because I have siblings who still live in Dominica. Thankfully, they have jobs, they are working, but sometimes you know how it is. Sometimes you have a job, yes, but you know, can you build a house with that job? You know, I think Dr. Fountain earlier alluded to that fact that, you know, years ago civil servants could build a house. You know, I have in my family, I've had aunts and uncles who worked in both sides of my family who worked with the government, who were civil servants, and they were able to build their homes and send their children to school and everything. So at this stage, I really don't understand why it is so difficult. I understand we're not a very big country. We don't have a lot of money, but I still don't understand why it is so difficult for our young people to find ways or find good outlets for their energy, and they are talented, but sometimes they end up in all kinds of troubles because they do not have a good way of letting out the steam, or you know, and the business of the CO all the time. I think that is part of our problem. Maybe, I mean, we love it, yes, everybody loves to free up and everything, but what happens after you free up all the time? When you come back to reality and you realize you have no food in your refrigerator, or you know, you can't, you have no electricity, or you can't pay your water bill, all of that. And I'm not saying that all of that can be fixed overnight, but it has been a very long time where things have been so tough for young people, and they have to rely on family and friends overseas and all of that, which is not a bad thing. Again, I'm not trying to cry all of that down. I'm just saying our country should be in a position where our young people can say, look around and say, you know what, I have this talent, and what am I going to do with it? You know, and not everyone needs to be a singer. Not everyone needs to be on stage. Not everyone, if you have that talent, by all means, go for it, use it, do whatever you need to do. But not all of us have that kind of talent. For example, I'm a perfect example, I would say. I'm a computer programmer. I'm not a singer. I'm not even a music producer. But I'm a writer. So I can use that talent and write a song in 30 minutes. But the thing about it is, our young people in Dominica, even if they have those kinds of talents, what are they going to do with it, because there is no outlet for it? Whatever the talent is, what are they going to do? So these are my thoughts on it, and I think about it all the time, that what can we do? And maybe, you know.
I can see your concern, Sam, especially, and as I go to Dr. Andre, Dr. Andre will probably respond to that by saying, there's people like you who are very concerned about your country. You're not looking to influence the vote in your country by just coming to vote illegally. You're asking the right question. Why don't they have an outlet? Because you know where you are. You know there's people who are responsible for ensuring that the infrastructure is taken care of, that you have when the job opportunities are not there. And you get a month where the jobs market, it looks like it's going on. Everybody upset when the garbage is not collected, they're upset, but things are getting done. Because when you get upset and you shout, your politicians come up and they perform and they deliver. Dr. Andre, I see this is what we're talking about here when we try to make the connection between proper budgeting and the whole question of electoral reform to get good governance. It's going to deliver that.
Well, if the budget doesn't really serve the interests of the people, then what do you expect? I mean, I think Lennox gave some alarming figures sometime last week indicating how much money was allocated for certain projects or certain ministries, and just an infinitesimally small percentage of that money was actually spent. And I think, if I recall correctly,
3 and 4%, 3 and
well,
4%.
exactly, and in fact, one of the ministries I think he referred to as, I think, is, he can correct me, sports and culture. And it's kind of ironic that in the aftermath of Thea's wonderful victory, that we are talking about the dearth of facilities, the dearth of tracks, the absence of incentives, or creating a nurturing environment for those of us who are talented on the sports field. So if the commitment is not there, then what do you expect? And if it's not there, because there's no incentive to serve the interests of your own people through free and fair elections. In other words, if you fear no evil, if you fear that because of the system is rigged, then you do not have to worry about being replaced, then what is the incentive to fix anything? What is the incentive to boost back production? What is the incentive to provide avenues and opportunities for young people? What is the incentive to provide opportunities for indigenous businesses to prosper, to grow? Huh? What is the incentive, for example, to provide relief to poor persons, subsidies or some types of concessions? None. Because again, the central instrument of a democracy, which is the ability to change a government if you so choose, if the electorate chooses to do so, is conspicuous by its absence. It's not there, and this is why the sort of retribution has already come down on the Kalinago people, because as I've noted on a previous program, a day or two after that victory of Annette Sanford, miraculously, I think it's Dawasco appeared out of nowhere in the territory asking people for money that they owed for water, after the directorate had promised them that they would not be asked to pay water in their own land. So the whole thing is a joke, So everything goes back to the absence of electoral reform. If your right to replace your government, if you so choose, is taken away from you, then there is no incentive for those who govern to govern in the interests of the Dominican people. Simple as it. If governance, the art of governance, is every 5 years or every electoral cycle, you distribute things in brown paper bags, you give a few $100s to persons, you give some sheets of galvanized, you give some BB and coconut water, and the cycle continues, then quite frankly, you are creating a pit of despair for your own people in a very callous fashion. I mean, look at the example of Mr. G. I think somebody made reference to the fact that persons involved in Kempinski selling passport for that facility receive bonuses or whatever you call it of approximately $30 million each. Hmm? They left Dominica rich, filthy rich. And you have Dominicans today who cannot even repair their roofs.
No, but they collected that money. I think it's about 160 million EC dollars, something like that. They collected that even before the hotel started having guests.
Well, there we go, and it shows you the priority system that we have. There are farmers dying for assistance. You have young people looking for. I go ask Blessings what happened to the money he gave to the government, with the expectation that his own little cottage industry would be supported. He lost the money, and to this day he hasn't been given an explanation. And it's not just him; there are many others, and so on. So if that's how you treat your own people, but you can afford to do so because, again, you don't have to worry about the people exercising their democratic right to vote you out because you've rigged the system in your favor. So that's the problem. You create a state of perpetual poverty. That's what you do. And not only do you create that state, but you boast. You boast about who can't afford a tin of paint. You boast about who doesn't have insurance. You boast about who have to buy Fenzik or paracetamol when they go to the hospital. If that is the perpetual state that you're creating, quite frankly, then you could see how the absence of electoral reform has doomed Dominica to a state of perdition, to a state from which it will not return. So that is what we've done to ourselves, really.
True.
You know, we're bearing our own cross because we fail to see that with the handcuffing of all those instruments of good governance, we are the biggest victims because those who benefit from the sale, they're making their little utopias out of Dominica.
Yeah.
You know, and it's those on the ground who will suffer the most, or those who don't have relatives abroad to send them a little something to help. It's a very sad state of affairs. It comes right back to electoral reform, irrespective of how you cut it. It's as simple as that.
But then, we're talking about electoral reform. Maybe we're talking about maybe somebody will go to the parliament at the end of the month, but we have no idea what they plan to go to parliament with. Will Dominicans sit there and see things happening there in plain sight and act as though they're not seeing it and then complain later? I hope not. But the clock is not with us right now. It's against us, in fact, and we already come to the 10 o'clock hour. And so I wanted to ask us to let us share our sort of final remarks this evening before we go. Let me just go first to Sam. Sam, you have sort of closing remarks you wanted to make before we end?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you, Mr. G, for inviting me and giving me the chance to talk a little bit about my work as a writer. As I said, I am not a singer, I am not even a music producer, but I have certain skills that, in addition to writing, that I use to produce the song for Thea. And, you know, so I just hope that with this historic win by Thea LaFond, it will propel the current administration and the next, whichever one that comes. If as we talk about electoral reform and we even the playing field, which gives everybody other people a chance, because after 20 years your ideas are kind of stale, if you just want to bring it down to the basics, right? So maybe it's time to give someone else the opportunity, someone else the chance to try and do something. If you love your country, that's the way that I think about it. If you truly love your country, they say, if you love something or somebody, it's easy to let them go. So that's what I would think. But I would hope, and I hope that some of the promises made this week or over the weekend would materialize, as opposed to the ones that have sort of vanished into thin air and we're still asking about
Well,
them. But in the meantime, if you love to read, and I hope you all do, please pick up a copy of The Flying Crapple #3. You might not see it very well, but this is the third book in the Flying Crapo anthology of my writing group. That is the Piton Noir group, and they told me to make sure I talk about this tonight. So I'm doing that right now, and we would love for you to pick it up. These are stories that sci-fi fantasy, but they are also rooted in Dominica's folklore and from our oral tradition. So this is our way of capturing what we grew up listening to, the stories we grew up listening to, and I have some great partners, co-creators, from Nicole Georges Bennett to Delia Coffee Weeks, and I won't try to remember everyone's name at this time, but so that's what I would like to add as we get out of here tonight. And one other thing, tomorrow night, as we speak of the first female Kalinago chief, and at Sanford will be Anthony's guest tomorrow night on This Week in Interview. So make sure you all check it out from 8 p.m.
Sam, this all sounds terrific. This initiative sounds great. And I hope we can talk about this a lot more some other time. We'll probably try to make some arrangements for it to come talk to us about this. I know.
Anytime, Mr. G. Anytime.
Yes. Another Dr. Andre is particularly interested in writers, and people are coming up in the literary world, and I'm pretty sure he'd be happy to engage. But Lennox, I just wanted to say this as we wrap your closing remarks. Sam brought this thing into my mind, and I remember somebody said, if you do the same thing the same way every time, you'll get the same results. And that is the result we're getting every year from the budget that we have. And secondly, Lennox, you know what some people say, that absolute power corrupts. Any government that stays in power for too long, they will be subject to becoming corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, Lennox, your closing words as we go.
I spoke to someone who was employed on the grammar school project. That grammar school project is a $78 million project, by the way.
Is any work still going on there as we speak?
I understand that work has slowed to a crawl there right now, and the project is a $78 million project according to the national budget, and they have already spent 76 million or thereabout. But there are a number of people who have worked for the past couple of months who still have not been fully paid. On Friday, I'm told by one of the workers there that they had not been paid for 2 months, but on Friday they received money on Friday for half of the amount that they owed. In the airport, and I don't understand how that grammar school project is $21 million above budget, but people cannot be paid. I don't understand how at the international airport we have spent, as of June 30th, 2024, we've spent a total of $546 million, not 5 million, not 5.46 million, not 54 million, $546 million. And property owners like Nurse Dalrymple and her siblings cannot get paid for property that was compulsorily acquired by the government for the public purpose of building an international airport. $546 million have been spent, and people whose property was taken away from them still cannot be paid. I don't understand that. I don't understand it. And it is clear, as Frederic Bastiat, the French philosopher, said many years ago, when plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they create for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. We have in Dominica that situation where plunder of the public resources has become a way of life for the people who have been in government for the past 20 years. and they have been creating for themselves their legal system that authorizes the plunder to continue, and a moral code that glorifies it, that turns it into a grand CWO that people celebrate while their interest is being injured big time. It is time to revolt against that. That's my 5 cents. Thank you, Sheridan.
Yes,
God bless you, Dr. Andre. God bless you, Dr. Fontaine. Sam George, God bless you. Lambi, God bless you. Dominique, I love you. Take care. God bless.
I would call it a very valuable 5 cents. Dr. Fontaine, your closing remarks, because I mean,
yeah. Yes, indeed. Very, very briefly to say thank you and to be part of this panel tonight and to discuss these issues. Let me just say, Mr. G, this is not about Roosevelt's carrot. The fact that we're here on those hours talking about the sporting future of our young children, talking about the lack of infrastructure, talking about the debt, talking about the lack of salary increases for public servants, it's not because it's about the Prime Minister, but it's about the future of the people of Dominica, a people that we love dearly, a people that we care about, the people from whom we come, and therefore we seek to give back. Good night to everyone, and may God continue to bless everybody.
Thanks a lot, Thompson. Appreciate what's now. Dr. Andre, you have a final word?
Yes, again, thanks for the opportunity to be here this evening. Thanks for your listeners. Let me commend Mr. George for his wonderful work, not only composing, he was telling me earlier that he also mixes music. I'm a mixer of a different kind, I have to confess. The only thing I mix is flour and water in a frying pan. But look, everybody has their own talents, and that's where my talents extend. But again, as I said, these are serious issues. The whole question of production.
Hold on. Dr. Andre makes bakes. Flour and water in a frying pan.
I never.
Bakes.
Can't you keep a secret, Mr. Linton? I didn't ask.
But I just want to be clear. I want to be clear. So.
I didn't ask you to say.
What you trying to say is that
don't like bakes.
I'm just giving the listeners a taste of my modest skills.
Okay, I get it.
But right. we need
Lennox, you declaring the man business well.
But we need a mixture or mixing of a different kind, a mixture of initiative, a mixture of dedication, a mixture of self-sacrifice, a mixture of modesty. We do not need to add any additional ingredients such as greed, such as selfishness, such as, for example, the insatiable appetite of helping yourself to the coffers of the state. These are part of the ingredients that we do not need in modern day Dominica. So with the LaFonds and with the Annette Sanfords and with those who are toiling in the wilderness, with those who recognize the importance and significance of hard work, with those who recognize that by the sweat of their brow they should eat bread, with those who are seeking to make a difference in the lives of others, such as putting the flame to the feet of those who are busy consuming the resources of the state. Let those people like Sam George and Miss LaFond and Miss Sanford and those patriots who speak almost to themselves in a soliloquy every day, every Tuesday night, of the need for electoral reform. Hopefully, let the sunshine smile upon them and illuminate the way to a brighter future, because that's what we need this evening. So I thank you for listeners, Mr. J. Thank you, Lambi. Thank you, Shumin. I can't see you. It looks like you're eating a bread with the tail of a fish out of it, but what you eat is your business. Good evening to your listeners.
Maybe it's big showing of him, man. No, but I want to
big up to my partner Sherwin. Yes.
Yes, I just want to thank everyone who's with us still on Facebook, on YouTube, and all the various platforms. And thank you all those who are listening to us on the radio, all the Q family and friends of Dominica. Thank you, Lambi. Thank you, Sherwin. Thank you, Sam, Dr. Andre, Lennox, and Thompson. Thank you so much again for taking the time to contribute towards the education of our people, information and education of our people. But I hope that we are listening and taking it on, and that we don't just stand aside and look, but we actually participate at the right time to protect your democracy and protect your ability to cast your vote and for it to matter. So, gentlemen, thank you and good night to everybody.
Good night. Take care.
Good night, everyone. God bless.
Oh,